Romance usually involves flowers and chocolate, but for these 49 Americans, it involved high explosives, terrified livestock, and potential federal crimes. We tracked down the most ridiculous, expensive, and legally questionable things people have done just to get a ring on a finger. If you think your proposal was memorable, prepare to feel inadequate. These people didn't just pop the question, they traumatized entire neighborhoods to do it. 1. An Arizona tattoo artist decided a simple knee and ring situation was amateur hour. His plan? Promise free mini heart tattoos to the first 200 walk-ins, but only if his girlfriend said yes before sunset. By noon, the line wrapped the block. Complete strangers bonded over romantic suspense, sharing snacks and wild speculation like some weird engagement tailgate. When she finally showed up to a wall of cheers and pieced together what was happening, she said yes instantly. The buzzing machines fired up like a hive that just got good news. By nightfall, half of Phoenix was walking around with permanent confetti inked into their skin. The local ER reported 0 tattoo regrets that evening, which might be a medical first. Her yes cost him roughly 200 free tattoos, but the man understood investment. 2. A West Virginia coal miner spent months of shift breaks chiseling shallow grooves into an abandoned seam. Not for gold, not for geological research, for a woman. He flew a drone through the tunnel and showed her the footage, her nickname etched into glittering anthracite, followed by, "Spend every sunrise with me." Her shriek hit a frequency so high the mine canaries fluttered off their perches in panicked solidarity. The coal company briefly considered a lawsuit, then realized romantic vandalism would make them look heartless in court. She said yes. The seam remains untouched, mostly because mining your own love letter creates a safety violation nobody wants to explain to OSHA. Underground proposals, not recommended but undeniably effective. 3. A Kansas City pitmaster smoked a whole hog for 18 hours with an apple in its mouth. Classic presentation, except hidden inside that apple was a heat-proof titanium ring, because apparently love now requires industrial metallurgy. After the low and slow cook hit perfection, he carved tableside like a surgeon, extracted the still gleaming band, and asked if she'd be his forever taste tester. She said yes before the burnt ends even cooled. Guests applauded. The pig had officially fulfilled its highest possible destiny. The ring reportedly still carries a faint hickory aroma years later, which is either romantic or mildly concerning depending on your feelings about smoked meats. 18 hours of cooking for a 10-second question, worth every minute. 4. In Nome, Alaska, a musher arranged his sled team's harnesses so from above, the formation spelled, "Be my lead." At the halfway checkpoint, she finally looked down and saw the canine calligraphy. The lead husky immediately let out a triumphant howl, less romantic approval, and more, "Where's my treat for this nonsense?" The rest of the pack joined in, creating an Arctic chorus of chaotic enthusiasm. She said yes, probably because refusing meant walking home alone through sub-zero temps, while 12 dogs silently judged her life choices. The musher later admitted the hardest part wasn't the training or the cold. It was keeping the dogs from peeing on the message before she could read it. Romance is complicated when your co-conspirators have 4 legs. 5. On Hawaii's Big Island, a volcanologist set up biodegradable lanterns along a safe lava field overlook. When lit, the flickering path spelled "erupting with love." And then, because the universe occasionally has impeccable timing, Kilauea's crater released a gentle puff of steam right on cue. She laughed and declared the volcano their official best man. Proposing next to active geological destruction is bold. Nothing says, "Till death do us part," like molten rock within walking distance. Park rangers were less thrilled about the fire hazard situation, but since nobody got incinerated, they settled for a warning and some very memorable photos. The honeymoon destination was anywhere without active lava. She set that boundary immediately. 6. A Napa Valley vintner spent an entire growing season pruning grapevines with surgical precision, so one row would spell "Pair with me forever" when autumn turned the leaves gold. Months of agricultural obsession for a single aerial shot. During harvest, she climbed the observation tower, spotted the vegetative love letter below, and immediately popped a celebratory cork so hard it ricocheted off a barrel and triggered a bubbly chain reaction. Bottles fizzed. Guests ducked. The vineyard threw its own champagne-soaked confetti party without anyone's permission. She said yes while wine dripped from the rafters. The winery later bottled that vintage as engagement reserve and sold out in hours. If your proposal doesn't involve viticulture and minor property damage, you're not trying hard enough. 7. On Lake Superior, a freighter captain arranged 5 horn blasts in precise Morse code spelling "Love You," timed exactly as his partner's tourboat passed. The thunderous notes rattled deck rails, vibrated through hulls, and probably violated several municipal noise ordinances. A startled gull executed a mid-air pirouette that looked almost rehearsed. Passengers who had zero clue what was happening applauded anyway, because massive boat horns command respect regardless of context. She mouthed yes through a cloud of celebratory fog while tourists snapped photos of what they assumed was some maritime emergency drill. Most people send texts. This guy used a 50,000-ton vessel's signaling system. The Coast Guard received multiple concerned calls about aggressive horn activity. Love makes you do strange things to shipping equipment. 8. A Wisconsin cheesemaker produced a 40-pound wheel with marbled curds arranged to hide a message visible only when sliced. At a family tasting, he cut wedges with suspicious precision until the cross-section revealed "Grow moldy with me." The pun was absolutely terrible, which is precisely why it landed perfectly. She said yes through uncontrollable laughter, surrounded by crackers, wine, and relatives suddenly very invested in aged dairy products. He kept the remaining wheel refrigerated for 3 years before they finally ate it. Throwing away 40 pounds of premium cheese in Wisconsin is basically a felony, so they made fondue. The ring tasted better. Actually, the ring didn't taste like anything, but the cheese was phenomenal. Priorities sorted. 9. An Idaho potato farmer used GPS-guided tractors to carve "Our love is tubercharged" across his entire field. A crop dusting pilot spotted the earthy billboard and snapped aerial photos that eventually reached her phone. She saw them from a highway turnout, broke several speed limits racing to the barn, and found him waiting with a ring and dirt under his fingernails. The proposal was quite literally rooted in soil. It takes a special kind of confidence to stake your romantic future on a starch pun, but she said yes anyway. The field was later harvested and turned into French fries, which is objectively the most delicious conclusion to an engagement story ever recorded. Circle of life, salted and deep-fried. Idaho romance doesn't mess around. 10. A Detroit drone hobbyist programmed 300 LED quadcopters to form animated emojis in the night sky, building to a finale where an 8-bit ring slid onto a pixelated hand. The FAA wasn't invited, but showed up anyway, hovering at the perimeter with visible anxiety. They granted exactly 10 minutes of airspace, just enough for her gasp, his kneeling question, and a neighborhood cheering louder than 300 combined propellers. The paperwork for that clearance took longer than the relationship had existed. But risking federal fines to ask a question? That's modern chivalry. She said yes in regulated airspace, which is the most 2020 sentence ever constructed. The drones landed safely. The relationship officially took off. The FAA probably added a new checkbox to their forms. 11. A Hawaii surf photographer positioned LED surfboards beyond the break, so from a cliff, the moving lights would trace words during long exposure shots. The ocean had to cooperate. The surfers had to hold position. The camera settings had to be flawless. When the time-lapse rendered, the screen revealed "Wave after wave, choose me," written in light across the Pacific. She agreed faster than a set rolling in at high tide. The Instagram version looked magical. The reality involved 3 guys shivering in wetsuits, screaming, "Kevin, stop drifting left," for 2 freezing hours in pitch darkness. She didn't need to know about the logistical nightmare, just the pretty result. Romance is 10% magic, 90% suffering you never mention afterward. 12. Minnesota's record snowfall inspired a carpenter to build a glowing ice castle in his driveway, complete with working fireplace vent and LED chandeliers made from frozen icicles. Neighbors lined up for tours like it was a holiday attraction. Local marshmallow sales spiked noticeably. He proposed inside the frozen throne room while the walls still held structural integrity, which in Minnesota terms means roughly 72 hours. She said yes, surrounded by twinkling ice and her own visible breath. Then, as Minnesota weather inevitably does, the temperature shifted and the whole structure sagged into the most romantic puddle the neighborhood had ever witnessed. Temporary architecture. Permanent commitment. The HOA sent a passive-aggressive letter anyway, because HOAs are contractually obligated to ruin nice things. 13. A Colorado avalanche control team fired colored smoke charges down a designated safe slope, and as the plumes cascaded and merged, they formed a massive pink heart against white snow. She spotted it from a ridge above just as the final charge boomed, perfectly masking her delighted shriek. Nearby skiers stopped mid-run, convinced the mountain itself had started celebrating something. High explosives repurposed for romance. That's a sentence that shouldn't work, but absolutely does. The Forest Service technically sanctioned a proposal involving detonation, which sounds like government resource misallocation, but we'll allow it because the photos were spectacular. She said yes with smoke still drifting across the valley. The mountain did not file an objection. 14. An Oregon arborist rigged camping hammocks between towering redwoods, so from above, the arrangement spelled, "Hang with me for life." They ascended at dawn using professional climbing gear, settled into the center hammock 50 feet up, and her joyous reaction startled a sleepy owl into what looked like an approving flyby. Trusting your engagement to carabiners and nylon straps at serious altitude is a fantastic way to test your partner's anxiety threshold before signing legal documents. She didn't panic, which suggests she's either a keeper or equally unhinged. The owl has declined all interview requests and returned to its branch, presumably still confused about the humans dangling from its trees at sunrise. 15. An Oklahoma storm chaser tracked a rotating supercell for hours, waiting for the exact moment the eye passed overhead. He proposed in that eerie calm between walls of chaos, then grabbed her hand and bolted for the ditch as conditions shifted. She said yes, somewhere between awe and survival instinct. Later, she joked their marriage would be about chasing the quiet center of chaos together. Their engagement photos feature actual tornado footage, dust, debris, and questionable decision-making included. Most couples want sunshine for their big moment. These two wanted a high probability of structural damage. Insurance agents review their file and weep quietly. They literally risked getting Dorothy Ed to Oz for a dramatic backdrop. 16. A Michigan botanist spent years crossbreeding roses, specifically engineered to bloom in mid-January, naming the impossible cultivar Aurora Faith after his partner. He chilled the greenhouse like a commercial freezer, kept the frost-rimmed bouquet alive against all horticultural logic, and unveiled it on Christmas Eve. She said yes while holding flowers that technically shouldn't exist under those conditions. His patent application listed romantic necessity under intended use. The patent office stared at that line for a solid hour. The man basically played God with plant genetics to avoid buying standard florist roses. That's either mad scientist energy leading to a happy marriage or a supervillain origin story. Time will tell. 17. A Washington apple grower trained his orchard's irrigation system to spell a proposal using synchronized sprinkler bursts, visible only at golden hour when water droplets caught light like liquid fireworks. He told her they were testing new equipment. She stood on the observation platform expecting boring agriculture tech demos, then watched "Marry Me" materialize in suspended mist between the trees. The sunset hit the spray at the perfect angle, creating a rainbow arcing over the final letter. She said yes while still dripping from overspray. The water bill for that single question was absolutely horrific. Hundreds of gallons for 2 words and a question mark. But the rainbow was unplanned, which means even the weather approved. 18. A Philadelphia steel drum street band practiced for weeks to secretly embed her name into Under the Sea, a song she never asked to be associated with but was about to become very connected to. When she strolled past their corner, the tune modulated into "Will You Dive In With Me?" Her happy dance was so infectious that a passing city bus driver honked in perfect rhythmic sync. Strangers applauded without knowing what they were applauding. Traffic briefly became the percussion section. Usually, street performers just want spare change. These guys wanted to facilitate a major life decision. The bus driver wasn't even part of the plan, just excellent timing and a heavy hand on the horn. First-time Philly traffic noise actually improved an ambiance. 19. At a Maryland crab boil, a chef dusted Old Bay onto brown paper in precise, negative space letters spelling "Shall We Wed?" The technique required planning, steady hands, and presumably dozens of practice runs. When the steam cleared and she spotted the spicy message, she cracked a claw for dramatic punctuation and the entire picnic erupted. One crab in the pile snapped its own claw at that exact moment, a tiny posthumous toast from beyond. If you can say yes while covered in crab guts and regional seasoning, the marriage will last. Messy, chaotic, smells like the ocean. Basically a perfect metaphor for matrimony. The pun was objectively terrible, which made it objectively perfect for the occasion. 20. An Ohio theme park engineer rewired a coaster's launch system so its acceleration pattern matched his girlfriend's previously recorded heartbeat. Riders unknowingly experienced her cardiac rhythm at 70 mph. She snagged front row, sensed something familiar in the launch, and the ride photo captured surprise, terror, joy, and engagement ring in one gloriously blurry frame. The liability waiver definitely didn't cover emotional distress via romantic G-forces, but nobody sued. She said yes on the exit ramp, shaking from adrenaline that had nothing to do with the loop-the-loop. It's the only time a cardiac event at an amusement park was considered a good thing. The coaster has since returned to normal heartbeat-free programming. 21. A Detroit auto engineer modified his project car's heads-up display so the tachometer needle spelled MARRY as RPMs climbed past each 1,000 mark. During a test track lap, she watched the dashboard with growing confusion until the letters became unmistakable just before redline. He hit the kill switch immediately, coasted to silence, and popped the trunk, which was filled with flowers instead of tools. The car's computer was probably screaming about 5 error codes during this stunt. If the engine didn't explode, that's basically a sign from the automotive gods. She said yes at 0 miles per hour, proving you don't always need speed to get somewhere important. The trunk smelled like roses for months afterward. 22. A Silicon Valley engineer coded an entire VR level recreating the pizza parlor where he first met his girlfriend. Sticky booth vinyl, broken jukebox, specific grease stain patterns on the counter, all faithfully reproduced. She strapped on the headset expecting a normal gaming session, played through the increasingly familiar simulation, and at the final boss fight, a pixelated ring hovered above the arcade cabinet. She said yes without needing an extra life or continue screen. The graphics were intentionally terrible for nostalgia points, a bold aesthetic choice for a life-altering question. She entered the headset a girlfriend and exited a fiancé, proving low-poly romance absolutely works if executed properly. 23. A Miami salsa instructor choreographed a couple's workshop where every partner swap was secretly calculated to rotate his girlfriend back to him, while the live band dropped increasingly obvious musical hints. On the final clave hit, all dancers froze in a rehearsed tableau, spelling a giant heart from above. He spun her into a dip that ended with a ring instead of the expected flourish. The coordination here was military grade. One missed step, one wrong beat, and the heart becomes an unrecognizable blob. But they nailed it. She said yes mid-dip, breathless, and probably dizzy from the spinning. Weeks of secret rehearsals involving dozens of willing accomplices for one 10-second moment. Worth every sore foot. 24. An Alaska ice road trucker heard his girlfriend mention craving authentic Tex-Mex, So naturally, he hauled a refrigerated trailer 1,500 snow-slick miles from Anchorage to Fairbanks packed with freshly prepared tacos. He reheated the entire spread beside the Aurora Borealis under a portable propane heater while northern lights danced overhead. The salsa froze mid-pour into a perfect suspended drip. The guacamole solidified into what looked like green concrete. But her yes came out warm enough to thaw fingers, hearts, and probably several tortillas. Hauling tacos across frozen tundra is objectively insane logistics. But logic has no place in love, and the guacamole was a necessary casualty of devotion. 25. An Atlanta tech recruiter hijacked the hold music playlist for every phone line in his company, replacing elevator jazz with a custom rap, rhyming her name with 401k and PTO day. Co-workers dialing into meetings heard the verse first and sat in baffled silence. When she finally called the office to complain about the weird musical stalking, he hijacked the next segment and proposed live over the phone system. HR officially filed it as the sweetest incident report in company history. It still uses that track as a case study for creative misuse of corporate assets. Professionally risky, socially awkward, absolutely effective. The rap was terrible. The outcome was perfect. 26. A New Mexico hot sauce entrepreneur created a limited edition batch so devastatingly spicy it legally required a signed waiver before tasting. The label featured a skull in a wedding veil and the words, "Will you handle the heat forever?" After one blistering sample that visibly reorganized her pain receptors, she grabbed the nearest milk, nodded yes through streaming tears, and demanded the marriage contract include lifetime antacid refills as a non-negotiable clause. Marrying someone who intentionally sets your mouth on fire is a specific trust exercise. The waiver is now framed in their kitchen, displayed next to a strategic supply of Pepto-Bismol. True love burns, sometimes quite literally. 27. A Nevada highway striping contractor diverted his road crew to paint "Marry Me" in standard DOT-approved yellow traffic paint across a closed stretch of unfinished interstate. He took his girlfriend for a safety inspection drive at 60 mph, and the message flashed by in a blur of industrial typography. It was massive, legally ambiguous, and visible from commercial airliners cruising at 30,000 feet. She said yes, mostly because the exit ramp was blocked and she was effectively trapped in the car. The Department of Transportation likely has questions about the unauthorized usage of thermoplastic resin, but the crew marked it down as advanced training exercises. Love is a highway, literally. 28. When billions of cicadas emerged across Virginia in their 17-year cycle, an enterprising entomologist mapped their collective mating clicks to MIDI notes and broadcast a weirdly catchy insect symphony through the forest. He slow danced with his girlfriend under protective bug netting while the crunchy, chirping soundtrack surrounded them. The moment was genuinely tender. The audio was objectively horrifying. Nobody within a half-mile got anything resembling peaceful sleep that night. Most people buy chocolates for romance. This guy weaponized a plague of insects. Gross, loud, and somehow heartwarming. She said yes, proving love really is deaf to ambient buzzing and periodic cicada chaos. 29. Kentucky's 2017 eclipse mania peaked when an amateur astronomer calculated exact timing to launch a hot air balloon, so the diamond ring phase would frame his partner's face at the moment of totality. His bullhorn proposal echoed across cornfields below. Cows in multiple pastures lowed in unified confusion. The local paper ran the headline, "Moon takes brief bow for true love," possibly the best eclipse coverage ever written. The cows were the real victims, having their grazing interrupted by celestial mechanics and human shouting. But the photo was perfect, so livestock bewilderment was deemed an acceptable sacrifice. She said yes, while the sun hid behind the moon, which felt appropriately dramatic. 30. A Pennsylvania teacher somehow convinced the New York Times crossword department to embed references to his relationship across an entire week of puzzles. She solved through Monday to Saturday, noticing odd coincidences, Then Sunday's grid revealed the diagonal proposal hidden in connected answers. She smudged newsprint tears across the sports section, while thousands of subscribers nationwide unknowingly participated in someone else's engagement by filling in boxes. The crossword editor was technically an accomplice to romantic conspiracy. Most intellectual proposal method possible. At least she didn't need the answer key to know her response. 4 across, 5 letters, starts with L, ends with forever. 31. An Idaho hot spring guide installed heat-resistant tiles on the pool bottom engineered to change color at exactly 104 degrees Fahrenheit, revealing, "Let's stay warm together." At lower temperatures, they looked like ordinary stones. When the geothermal surge finally hit the trigger point, letters glowed brilliant turquoise beneath steaming water. A nearby bison watching from the tree line snorted a visible breath plume that honestly looked like wildlife approval. Relying on volcanic plumbing for your proposal is risky. Cold water means 2 people staring at muddy nothing. But the earth cooperated, tiles glowed, bison didn't charge. Solid win for nature-assisted romance. 32. Off the Maine coast, lobster fishers coordinated to arrange over 1,000 illuminated buoys spelling, "Will you marry me?" across dark water, viewable only from a specific cliff overlook. The Coast Guard initially scrambled after mistaking the formation for an SOS distress signal, creating brief radio chaos. Once clarified, they blasted foghorn congratulations that rattled every gull in the harbor into startled flight. Coordinating 1,000 floating objects in the Atlantic is a logistical nightmare. One strong current could have changed "marry me" into "marry me," or just scattered gibberish. But knots held, lights worked, Coast Guard stood down. Nautical yes echoed across the water. Buoys returned to lobster duties by morning. 33. A Montana rancher spent weeks trying to train his border collies to herd 500 sheep into a specific formation, but eventually gave up and just spread alfalfa in the shape of a giant heart. When he whistled, the flock swarmed the feed lines, creating a massive, fluffy, woolly love note visible from the hayloft where he'd led his girlfriend. The smell was distinctly barnyard, and the heart kept shifting shapes as the sheep jostled for food, but the sentiment held. She said yes while watching livestock devour the artwork. It wasn't the cleanest proposal, but it was certainly the warmest. The sheep were just happy about the unexpected snacks. 34. An Alabama firefighter staged a fake cat stuck in a tree drill so he could dramatically rappel down with a kitten wearing a collar tag reading, "Marry my hero?" Neighbors gathered on the lawn to watch the rescue unfold with suspicious theatrical timing. The kitten, unaware of its crucial role, scratched him multiple times during descent, because cats fundamentally do not respect romantic gestures. She said yes before he needed actual first aid from his own proposal prop. True love apparently leaves claw marks and requires bandages. He got the girl, she got the kitten, and the kitten got a lifetime of resenting them both. Fair trade all around. 35. Maine's Blueberry Festival crowned its pie baking champion when his entry revealed a lattice pattern spelling "Say Yes Violet" in carefully woven sugared crust. The moment she cut the first slice, warm berry juice bubbled up through the cuts in what looked suspiciously like a natural exclamation point. The judge nearly awarded bonus points for dramatic punctuation achieved through fruit physics. Winning a blue ribbon and a fiancé in the same hour is a solid festival experience. The pie was consumed immediately, destroying the evidence, but the ring was inedible, so that remained. She said yes with purple-stained fingers and pastry crumbs on her dress. 36. A Georgia radio morning show host secretly switched every bumper music snippet to songs referencing his girlfriend's name, then ran week-long trivia where callers only won by guessing her favorite karaoke tune. The theme became increasingly obvious. When she finally called the station to complain about the bizarre musical stalking targeting her specifically, he hijacked the next live segment and proposed over the airwaves. Station phone lines crashed from incoming congratulations. The manager probably panicked about FCC implications, but the rating spike was undeniable. She couldn't exactly decline with 50,000 listeners waiting. Public pressure proposal, ethically questionable, romantically effective. 37. A Colorado astronomer convinced a local brewery to project a laser grid onto Pikes Peak during the Perseid meteor shower, briefly outlining a massive glowing question mark ending with, "Marry me, Cass?" The Perseids cooperated beautifully, providing natural streaking special effects on cue. The mountain echoed her shouted yes back, like geological surround sound. Using a mountain range as a projection screen is admittedly a flex. Light pollution probably annoyed some purists, but when the universe throws in free meteors, you don't complain about the lasers. The brewery got excellent publicity. She got a fiancé. The mountain remained indifferent but photogenic. 38. An Arkansas welder spent months fabricating a 2-story steel maze shaped like a scannable QR code, using industrial equipment and a truly unreasonable amount of metal. From drone altitude, scanning the code opened a private Spotify playlist of inside joke songs only they'd understand. Walking through on foot felt like navigating a metal cornfield with fresh welding sparks still faintly glowing. She reached the center platform, scanned the final code, and said yes forever. The welding wire used could have built a small bridge, industrial, digital, and permanent. If she declined, it would have been the world's most expensive scrap heap. She didn't decline. 39. During a Minnesota aurora forecast, a photographer set up steel wool spins, throwing sparks beneath the northern lights, timing long exposures so fiery rings framed the words, "Glow with me," against the cosmic backdrop. When he showed her the final image on camera, she hugged him so forcefully the tripod toppled, accidentally capturing a bonus shot of their blurred silhouettes against dancing green sky. That unplanned photo became their actual engagement picture. Chaos and cold captured perfectly. The camera lens might have been scratched in the tumble, but the memory was flawless. Equipment damage was deemed an acceptable cost of enthusiasm. 40. After Wall Street's closing bell, a New York trader hacked the lobby ticker to scroll, "NASDAQ up, my heart up more, marry me." She read it while exiting the subway, spun in shock, and immediately collided with a delivery courier whose coffee launched skyward like caffeinated confetti, drenching everyone in latte-flavored celebration. The dry cleaning bills made this an expensive proposal. Securities manipulation is generally frowned upon, but since he only hacked the lobby display and not actual markets, the SEC let it slide. She said yes, dripping with espresso. The courier apologized. Nobody pressed charges. Romance prevails over spilled beverages. 41. A North Carolina competitive eater arranged 500 buffalo wings across 12 picnic tables to spell "Marry Me" in spicy orange poultry, finishing the arrangement moments before the state fair horn blew. She read the greasy message, accepted the proposal with sauce already on her chin, and then they immediately sat down to competitively demolish the letter M together. The crowd cheered as bones piled up. It was romantic until you calculate the sodium intake, but at least the engagement dinner was free. Couples who binge together stay together, though they might need matching blood pressure medication later. The cleanup crew was horrified by the carnage. 42. Boston's most dedicated barista had memorized 642 regular customers' drink orders over years. But for one special week, he printed cup sleeves with microtext recalling one specific shared moment with each person. Her sleeve was different. It summarized their entire meet cute and ended with "turn around." She spun from the pickup counter, saw him already kneeling in a spreading puddle of spilled cold brew, and decided caffeine withdrawal could absolutely wait. The data management required was genuinely terrifying. He basically built a CRM database for romance. We'll call it attentive rather than concerning, since it worked. She said yes before the foam settled. 43. A Washington, D.C. policy analyst inserted footnotes into a 200-page committee draft that read sequentially across the document, formed a complete clandestine love letter hidden in bureaucratic formatting. His partner, also on staff, caught the Easter egg during late-night edits and immediately understood. Their hallway fist bump escalated to an actual ring presentation behind closed committee room doors. Only in D.C. is reading footnotes considered romantic activity. The bill probably passed without anyone else noticing the hidden sonnet in Section 4, Paragraph C. Democracy dies in darkness, but love apparently thrives in the margins and subclauses. 44. A Los Angeles indie filmmaker quietly spliced months of candid phone clips into a feature-length rom-com starring his completely unsuspecting girlfriend. When the premiere screened at a rented theater for friends and family, she slowly realized the plot unfolding was literally their actual relationship, scene by documented scene. End credits transformed into wedding vows scrolling upward. Audience popcorn went untouched because every jaw had dropped simultaneously. Making your girlfriend watch a movie about herself without warning is risky. Bad editing means you're single. But he stuck the landing. Critics, her parents, gave it enthusiastic thumbs up. She said yes before house lights came on. 45. A Phoenix ultra-marathon runner plotted a 26.2-mile GPS route, spelling B-Sarah, when tracked on mapping software, then completed it on Valentine's Day in triple-digit Arizona heat while live-streaming every sweaty, suffering mile. Online viewers donated sports drink money as he visibly deteriorated. He collapsed across a finish line banner doubling as an impromptu aisle. She met him there, sand-covered and severely dehydrated, and said, yes. Running a marathon is hard. Running one that spells words is harder. Doing it in Phoenix heat is just a cry for help. She provided water, electrolytes, and a ring. Saved his life and future simultaneously. 46. At 3 a.m., a Brooklyn street artist began projecting a building-to-building flipbook animation across Times Square, each massive facade displaying a single frame of a love story, visible only by traveling the entire loop. Taxi drivers cruising the route watched the narrative unfold through windshields. His partner hailed the final cab in the sequence just in time to catch the proposal scene projected enormous across a skyscraper, and kissed the director through the open window before the meter stopped. The taxi fare for that loop probably exceeded the ring's cost. Turning Times Square into a personal cinema is usually reserved for Marvel movies, not street artists. Bold, expensive, effective. 47. A Chicago attorney discovered a loophole, formally adopting his girlfriend's geriatric cat specifically to sign next of kin on veterinary paperwork, which he proudly called a per-nuptial agreement to anyone who'd listen. The senior feline later participated in their actual wedding, strutting the aisle in a tiny custom tuxedo before shredding the ring pillow exactly on cue, earning a standing ovation and requiring several bandages for the ring bearer. Adopting a cat that openly despises you is the ultimate commitment demonstration. The cat didn't care about legalities, just treats. Lawyer got the girl got the cat got a tuxedo, and lifetime of resentment. 48. A Texas blues guitarist recorded a vinyl single that sounded completely normal until the run-out groove, where a locked loop whispered, "Marry me, Lila," every 1.8 seconds on infinite repeat. He played it at a house party, let the loop run just long enough for her to hear and process, then lifted the needle right before the repeated whisper drove guests completely insane. She said yes immediately. A locked groove is genius until you realize it sounds like demonic chanting if left too long. 5 more seconds and guests would have started an exorcism instead of celebration. He timed it perfectly. The record is now framed on their wall. 49. A Missouri TV meteorologist secretly reprogrammed his 7-day forecast graphic so high-temperature digits for Monday through Sunday spelled "Will you marry me" on the green screen. Studio crew somehow maintained straight faces on camera. Viewers at home tweeted confusion about impossible temperatures and missing numbers. His girlfriend, watching breakfast news from their kitchen like every morning, decoded it first and answered yes through the station's app before sports even started. He predicted 100% chance of acceptance with slight risk of public humiliation. Forecast held. Honestly, the most accurate thing a weatherman has said in years. She said yes before the traffic report. We just watched 49 people risk arrest, bankruptcy, and bodily harm for a yes. Now look at your own relationship. Did you get a laser show on a mountain or just a mumble over a lukewarm dinner? Exactly. I want you to go to the comments and tell me the absolute worst, most embarrassing, failed proposal you have ever witnessed in real life. Roast them. If this video made you feel better about your own life choices, hit that subscribe button. You need more of this.